Welcome, everybody, to the High Return Real Estate Show. I am very excited today. We've got a really amazing guest on today that has just absolutely extensive experience in real estate investing and does a lot of training in the industry, teaching people how to buy and hold properties without using any of their own cash or credit. So it's very excited about this conversation. And of course, I'm here with my amazing, illustrious, and daringly handsome business partner, Mr. Jack Gibson.
What do you want today, bud?
No, I just appreciate you, man. I'm happy that we're being able to work. Seems like we're doing a few more shows lately, and I'm happy to be getting back into a groove. And so it's all good. So stand by just a minute, and we'll introduce our fabulous guest.
Welcome to the High Return Real Estate Show, the podcast for heavy hitters. Two men, one mission. It's time to build your empire.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Today we have the amazing and wonderful Mr. Chris Prefontaine. Chris is an author, Amazon best-selling author, written a couple books. And oh, by the way, Chris, I just got this.
Sweet.
And I'm really thankful for that. But you've been in the business for like 25 years, and you've done construction, and you've done coaching and training. And anyway, I could go blather on and on about your bio, but I want to more dive into picking your brain and finding out a little bit more about you. But welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
I didn't get all the same accolades that Jack did, but it was good.
Well, you're handsome too, so don't worry about it. You know, I'm liking the red shirt.
Yeah. He'll start, kissing up later on in the show.
Yeah.
You'll get plenty.
So I actually like your accent a lot better than Jack's.
That's right.
You got that, I don't know, it's that New England. Yeah, exactly.
Where are you from, Chris?
I'm in Rhode Island right now. I brought the kids up closer to the Boston area, Massachusetts.
Yeah. I got some good friends we were just hanging out with and on vacation. They're from Boston, and everything's
cool.
It's mock. It's the A and the R. Mock.
Yep.
Mark,
sometimes there's an H in there too.
Mock.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes me want to go watch a Patriots game.
Right. Yeah, at least you can watch.
Well, you should anyway.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, Chris, tell us a little bit about how you got started. I know you've been in the business for like 25 years. And what got you into real estate? What were the things that worked? What were the things that didn't work? Just, roll us through a quick history of yourself.
Sure. And then if you want to go back to it in more detail, just hit me. So I started in 91. It's actually coming on 28 years to date myself. I started doing what I called spot building back then. I would, you guys remember the late Earl Nightingale, right?
Yeah.
So I was listening to a tape once of his. It was a cassette tape, so I'm really dating myself. But he talked about it, this guy during the Depression that nothing was selling. So he'd go to landowners and he'd put signs in the yard and just try to sell it and then collect a spread. So I went around with that thought, and there was no voicemail then. It was literally a voice recorder at home. I went around and put lot signs out with people that would let me. Then I hooked up with a builder, and we pre-sold a package, and nobody got paid till the end. The lot owner, the subcontractors, everybody got paid when the house was done in finance. So it was a pretty cool system. Without knowing we were doing terms. Built a few hundred homes. In 95, I bought a Realty Executives franchise. I was never a realtor. I just went that route for 5 years, built it up, sold it to Coldwell Banker in 2000. And then 2000 to 2008, did some coaching throughout US and Canada, but mostly I was working on my own investments. And that led to the great, lovely national debacle of real estate crash in 08. That caused us, besides headaches, pain, collectors, it caused us to re-engineer by 2012 what the heck we're doing. And that was what you alluded to. No more taking out bank loans, no more soliciting for funds from investors, no more signing personally. I had no credit left to sign, but no more signing personally. And so that led us to what we've built now, which is we have a family company. We buy and sell in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts personally. And then we have students around the country there are around 60 of them now that actually do deals with us in different marketplaces. So that's what it's evolved to.
Nice.
Go back to the very beginning. So that's fascinating the way you started with. It seems like the model, from what I understand it, is you eliminated all the hold costs since everybody gets paid out at the end. Is that right?
I think back, Jack, I guess I was young and naive. I was 25 in 91. So I didn't know better. I was like, okay, I don't have a bank loan. So yeah, the subcontractors would ahead of time would explain you're getting paid at the end. Everybody got a good price. The lot owner got a good price, but they all waited. So no bank loans, no nothing. We just had to hustle and get these little first-time buyer homes built so that people weren't
Right.
waiting long.
Who financed the actual building of the homes?
The subcontractors waited, including the lumber supplier. Everybody was on board.
Wow. And
I don't know if I could pull that off now.
I was going to say, is that a model that could even happen in today's marketplace? Or?
I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
I think things were a little slow if I think back in 91 and as things got better, I'm sure that they wouldn't do that. And we were cranking out like in 90 days, 120 tops would get them done. Keep in mind, we pre-sold them. These weren't specs. So we pre-sale, get a 10% deposit, get permission to use that, and the rest had to wait.
Wow.
Yeah,
awesome.
it's great. It's a great story of entrepreneurship because it's really just born out of need.
Young and naive. Just
yeah.
Sometimes there's benefits to that, right? You got to figure things out and be creative, and you got it done one way or another.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what are you working on right now?
We are, so both sides of the coin. We're still building our business here. It's my son-in-law, Zach, and my son, Nick, primarily with a great support team. So we're buying still a few properties a month. And then we call them associates, with the students around the country that we call associates, the more serious and committed ones that are doing deals in the trenches with us. Total we do with them around 11 or 12 a month in addition to ours around the country. So we're revenue sharing on those. We're getting on the phone with them. We're helping them do deals. I think you guys would probably agree. I think there's just an enormous gap in the industry right now from the time a person goes to a course or a seminar to the time they actually get a deal done. Yeah. And sometimes it never happens, and it's sad. So every week we have people calling us saying, "Oh, I spent all this money. I didn't do a deal yet." So I said, "Well, I don't get that. Like, this is the whole purpose of doing this." So we're doing deals with them now, and it's working well.
Yeah, Chick, you and I say all the time, man, they spend 40, 50 grand on all this courses and education. They could have bought a property from us and
no kidding,
that same funds and started making money right away versus, I know the education is important, but if you don't execute on it, what good is it?
I would agree with that 100%. We had two that are still with us, doing well now. But when they started, they were very gun shy. They both spent six figures before meeting us.
Wow.
Can you dive into more detail, like how you structure that with your students? Like, what do they need to do? It sounds like they're going out and finding the deals, and you're helping to bring funds in, or maybe I'm confused. Like, how?
No, it's okay. Good question. Yeah. It's a good question because some people have a program where they just go get leads and bring you deals. It's not what we do. So it's not about labor for us. It's about, they go through our course, and then when they join the associate program, they're getting weekly calls. And then as they get busy, more often as needed, but the calls are coaching them. And then as they bring the leads in and they're actually doing the deals, now we're diving into the deal with them. Do you need me to call your seller? Do you need me to? So we're never bringing money to the table. I mean, there's exceptions where I'll invest with someone, but it's rare because they're buying them on lease purchase or on a financing with no money down, $100, $10, no deposit.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So how is that structured? Like, can you give us an example of a deal that just went through, and what did it look like? And how did it break down? How did they make money? How did you get paid? Anything else you can share?
I'll give you a simple one that was owner financing. There's different nuances, right? But this one was a student in Pennsylvania, Don. Nice 5-acre estate. I think it started at 10 acres, and then the owner got it down to 5 acres and sold it to us. It was free and clear. So this is not a stressful situation. A lot of the times it's just we're going to provide a different route. The seller was trying to sell it for like, I want to say $429 or something like that with a realtor. Fall was approaching. He wanted to go to Texas with his family, 5 kids. So he didn't want to stay here anymore. He's in Pennsylvania. We said to him, look, we'll give you your $429, full price, no questions asked. If you do no money down, you do at least a 3-year term, and we'll pay you $1,500. It was $1,540 to be exact. $1,540 per month, principal only payments for 4 years. So it's massive principal reduction. Then we turn around and we say, great, we're going to put a rent to own, a tenant buyer in that house, and collect a down payment, collect a monthly spread. And then of course, at the end of that term, collect a really hefty payday in the back end because we've got all that principal pay down happening throughout the term. That's a pretty typical free and clear deal that we do with the seller that can wait, obviously.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, and so I want to go back to Jack's comment really about, and both you guys, all this money that's being spent without doing deals. And it's just a side comment, but I come from the digital marketing world, and I feel like there's almost too much information and too many gurus and too much training that is out there that is really not worthy training. And the training that's put out there is really just designed to bring in an unsuspecting potential investor or student or associate, whatever you want to call them, into a sales funnel that really just produces more sales. It doesn't really produce any kind of real action taking. And
100%.
yeah, and it's a shame that that's what goes on. And and I saw this in a couple other industries too. I mean, I was pretty heavily involved in the make money online industry, which isn't real estate, but digital marketing and internet marketing, that sort of stuff. And the same thing. There was a lot of dead bodies there of students that just would come on and say, I want to learn this stuff. But and it's not necessarily always I hate to use the word guru, but the guru or the trainer's fault. There's some psychological things that go on when a person hits the buy button of that course that's creating a rush of dopamine. That's saying, okay, I feel like I can be successful buying the course. But, and half the time the courses don't even get opened. And it's really, really a shame. And I bring this up only because I want the listeners to understand that you could have even Chris, like the best training in the world, but if you're not diving in, then you're not really going to learn anything. And Jack and I have learned, especially in the history of our humble little turnkey company, that what we know now is amazingly different than what we knew 3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
But we've learned by doing. We've learned by getting kicked in the teeth 1,000 times and figuring out how to not continue to get being kicked in the teeth. And, you said yourself, you were kind of young and dumb and didn't really know. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then the crash happens in 2008. So we got to do something different. So a lot of it has to do with leveraging the current situation that you're in correctly. And so, kudos to you, by the way, for, I guess, reinventing yourself as the years have passed and rolling along with the market changes. But it's great to hear the success stories of your students.
Back to your thing on the digital funnels, Jeff, it's real prevalent. I was on a show recently and the guy said, he didn't use the name, he didn't want to use it publicly, but he said he knows of a guy in the apartment world that literally never bought a house yet, but he's got this cool online system. He's selling apartment training. That's exactly what you're saying right now. But here's the other thing. When they hit the buy button, I think the problem is, or the challenge is, the false expectations. One of the biggest things is managing those expectations. Like, it's not going to happen with our system in 1 month unless they luck out. It's just not going to happen. So we tell them to allow 180 days minimum to go through the cycle of the mental piece, the learning piece, the skill set piece, and then get to your deal. That's just, we set that up so they don't set themselves up for failure in month 1 or week 1.
Yeah, and it's great that you're doing that. The problem is that the moment you turn on your computer and get on the internet, you're one guy that's trying to manage some expectations correctly, and there's 99 that are not.
Yeah.
And so they're, almost like people are programmed to think that you can get rich quick.
Right.
And it really, unfortunately, doesn't happen that way. So, and we run into some similar things. I mean, our model's a little bit different, and, we're dealing with people who are just trying to buy a good, solid rental property, buy and hold, and it's a pretty simple, straightforward process. But even we see with some of our competitors, there's, promises and expectations of everything's going to be perfect. Well, no, it's a rental property. Things aren't going to be perfect. There's human beings that live there, and human beings have struggles and issues and things like that. And sometimes, as they say, shit happens.
Yeah, life's going to happen, actually.
Yeah. And
it seems like, Chris, your model is more geared towards action for the students. Like, they're getting into action and execution versus learning and learning all this complicated information of all the different facets of real estate that they can possibly take on. And it seems like it's a hyper-focused type of model, if I'm getting it right. Is that?
Yeah, so good point. So it's not a bunch of shiny objects. It's one A through Z course that we operate on every day, so we know it well, and we update it constantly. It's like a moving, breathing thing. It's always updating. And then it's pretty hard not to do what you just described for the student. It's pretty hard not to get in action, because we're going to have a weekly call. We're going to say, here's your things you're going to set up for next week so that we can then lead gen. And then once we lead gen, here's what we do for the appointment. And it's each week, unless they literally disappear and have a life event, they're going to be in action. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. So go ahead, Jack. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, could you go back and dive into a little bit more about how you had to pivot and from '08 to, into 2012? What did that look like? I mean, that's a pretty substantial pivot from the way you described it, that you were using funds and then now we said no more of that. Like you were done, tying up and guaranteeing loans and all of that. What all led to that? I mean, there must have been '08 must have been pretty cataclysmic for your company.
I remember like it was yesterday. So it was February of '08, and I had just done a refinance on my house down here in Newport to yank out like $300,000 to have the business survive in my mind. And after I did that, then the funding, the intent was refinance it in 6 months, right? It was expensive to refinance. And then that you couldn't do it after that. 6 months came and things were not good anymore and the banks weren't lending anymore. So that loan lived with me for 3 more years. And the payment monthly was $25,000. That didn't sit too well. So the business,
$25,000?
So the business nothing could support that. And so it took me 4 years to wind out of 20 something properties that were either upside down or short sales, or it was like a part-time job working that. So by 12, I started getting into the mode, finally getting my legs back, saying, okay, we got to do something, and started just doing lease purchase and sandwich leases. So by the end of 13, I pretty much had a good little churn going by myself. And then by 14, my son came in. And by 16, my son-in-law and daughter came in. And now we've got a great little cycle going with all that. It's pretty on automatic now.
So you were playing defense, sounds like, for like 4 years.
Yeah, exactly right.
So frustrating when you're playing defense, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we want to be aggressive. We want to be getting after deals. We want to be generating new business, right? So here you are playing defense, and you're like you're burning up inside.
Yeah,
I can picture, because we kind of went through that, not to that level, but we've gone through a similar process. So
yeah, the only way to handle it was to literally like work on things in the morning, let's say the rotten stuff, and then close the chamber door and then go do new lead generation, because you just get sucked in like a vacuum.
Yeah. So during that time, you weren't just playing defense. Like you would take a set time and you'd focus on trying to get unwind, but then you're also like, I got to go out and generate revenue too. I can't just spend all my time trying to unwind.
Yeah. Had to. And then I would speak. There's a couple people in mind. One I wrote about in my book that I would just call and talk to him, because he was a business owner and been through a lot. So that was helpful.
What do you feel like, we talk about all the time in the personal development space that, when you go through adversity like that, it just builds so much character and strengthens you, and you learn so much more in that type of, situation than you'll ever learn when you're successful. What were the major lessons that you pulled out of that, could share with us, audience, with perspective?
If I think back, I shared this recently, and I should probably write this down so I share it at my event. But I recently thought back and said, all right, both headaches I had in the last 2 decades, had 2 headaches like that, like '08. And they both were times I look back and I thought, okay, things were going good. So I didn't have a mentor or anything I was attached to by way of a mastermind or a group. I'm not saying that would have fixed it, but I'm saying that might have circumvented some of that ahead of time. Somebody would have said, what are you doing here? What's going on here? So we just align ourselves every year with someone or something that is going to help us get to the next level, whether it's up here or whether it's scaling or whether it's lead gen, whatever it might be. We're always attached to someone now. We don't leave those gaps, because it's clearly two times in the early 90s. And then there was no like mentor with me, locked arms with us.
How did you find a mentor, and what do you compensate them somehow, or what's their kind of role?
I've always had numerous in different areas of life and business. So like in end of 17, we thought, okay, what do we need now as a business? And it was more scaling. It wasn't lead gen. We had that. We got that covered. So it was more scaling, and we seeked out elite entrepreneurs. It's 2 people spun off out of Infusionsoft and started this to help small businesses grow from, say, 7 to 8 figures. And that was necessary for us. So we've been with them now for a little over 2 years. And I credit a lot of our growth and scaling and culture and values to that. okay, so now next coming up for us is a little bit different. You know, we're thinking, okay, now what do we need to do? We need to get more creative with some of our financing and some of that. So we're working with Eddie Speed's team and doing some things there. So it's just each year, it's where do we need to go next, and then attach that mentor. And yeah, usually you are paying, no question. But if you invest in you, usually, as you guys know, it's 5-10 times return. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, kudos to you. I'm listening to all this, feeling kind of bad about myself now because when the crash happened in '08, and I had a small flipping business in San Antonio, Texas at the time, and partner kind of left me high and dry, and I was left holding the bag. And like you, a lot of that stuff was in my name, and I was very much relating to your story about it being a part-time job, just muddling through that. And I wasn't holding 20. I think I had 6 or 7 at the time. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough for one guy and no staff to feel very, very overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And you went out and looked for other ways to make money. What I did was I swore off real estate. I mean, I just said, I'm done. I'm out. Yeah. And after that whole debacle, I moved from San Antonio to Austin and got into the digital marketing game and just said, I don't even want to think about real estate. And ironically now it's like I'm using both those skill sets, what I learned from real estate. So I ended up circling back mostly because of this nice partner that I have on this show. But it's, I was out, man. I was like, screw this. I
don't blame you. It's easy to do that, right?
Yeah, but I think you both speak a lot to, which I don't think I would ever give up on anything as much now. I mean, we've built a lot of resilience in the course of starting this business. And, I just feel like, the spoils go to the people that can tough out the hard stuff.
Have you guys read Grit, the book Grit?
No.
It's just what you just referenced, and our whole theme in this year's event is going to be grit. And we actually have you guys are old enough to remember Rudy, the movie Rudy.
Oh yeah.
So Rudy's our keynote. He's our keynote.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, great. But you gotta pick up that book. It's a good takeaway for the listeners. Grit. It's not fluff. It's scientific. This woman went through scientific studies on grit and grinding it out, like you just said. It's an incredible book.
Yeah, my friends were actually in the movie. They were.
Really?
Yeah, so that Rudy was filmed maybe 30 minutes from here.
You got to fly up next week then. You can see Rudy.
See Rudy? I think he comes back to Notre Dame, so I'll have to catch him when he's here.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great. So I guess, it's time we got to take a quick break just to do I know Nicole's waiting to tell all of our listeners about the home run of the week, so just stand by.
Hi, this is Nicole, your Director of Investor Relations at High Return Real Estate. This spacious single-family home on Alpine Place is in a very desirable location. It backs up 2 parks, a wooded area, and is surrounded by owner-occupied singles. It is located just outside the Circle in Indianapolis, which is also called the Circle City. This cozy B-class property can be summed up in one word: stability. Email me at homerun@highreturnrealestate.com. That's homerun@highreturnrealestate.com, and I'll send you all the details. Talk to you soon.
Okay, we're back with Chris Prefontaine, and this has been actually not the kind of conversation that I thought it was going to be, but it's much better than I had hoped. So I'm always excited when we get to dive into some of the personal development stuff. Really kind of the big question that we like to ask guests and I'm not necessarily intended to put you on the spot, but what is the question that we didn't ask you that we should have asked?
What sucks because they're not all good, right?
It doesn't have to be good. Just be real.
Thought we've talked about some of the suck, But,
yeah.
Well, yeah, old suck.
Is there more?
The whole grit thing. Let's go to that then, because if you think that, you alluded to this, if you think that you can build and scale and do anything without headaches, you're just delusional.
Yeah.
So there's headaches every week. It's just a matter of having a cool team around you. And one of the things we do is we set up values, and so all the decisions are made based on that. And every time we have to pivot or second guess ourselves, we go back to that. But there's headaches no matter what you do. It's just having the grit to get through it.
And so just a finer point on that, when you talk about problems and headaches and things like that, there's a certain negativity to that. I'm not criticizing you. It's an observation, not necessarily a criticism. We're all taught that to just have this positive mental attitude and always be positive and all that other kind of stuff. So how do you navigate through that and keep the attitude positive? Or that's maybe part A, or B, is it unrealistic to be overly positive? Because I've had people recently, and I do a lot of personal development stuff, criticize me for being too positive. They're like, Shecky, you look through the world with rose-colored glasses and everything's going to be great and perfect. And I tend to lean in that direction. I've sort of trained myself my whole life to do that. And now at this ripe old age that I'm at now, I'm starting to think maybe that's not so wise after all. I don't know. What are your thoughts on all that?
I mean, I'm the ultimate optimist too. I look, say there's a scale of the ultimate optimist, and then the I'll pick on attorneys and accountants. They're trained to find problems, right? It's a job. So here's the scale. I tend to be in the upper half or upper quadrant too. I don't think there's anything about being overly. I think there's a good thing about having a mentor or an accountability partner to keep yourself in check. Because to Jack's early comment about paying mentors, I have an accountability partner. We don't pay each other. We have a great business relationship, and we keep each other in check. And I met him through my podcast, and we've been at this now for 2.5 years. I look forward to the 15-minute session, because he might say, well, wait a minute, can I go back to that and double check me on stuff, and vice versa. It's really cool. So if you're overly optimistic and you have an accountability partner, I think that helps. It's just one thought.
Yeah, love it. And so it's interesting that you say you found him on your podcast. What was it that, and you don't have to mention any names, I'm just curious, what was the little spark, the connection that made you say?
He actually produces my show to this day. And Mitch Stevens, when I was on his show, said, you got to meet this guy. Why don't you have your own show? And I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to deal with getting people, the whole thing. I was just blocking it. And now that I've met Steve is his name, Steve and I have become really good friends. He's invaluable as a business. We do JVs together. He comes to all my events and participates in them. I mean, we just developed this cool relationship over 2.5 years.
Yeah.
How long's your show been going, Chris?
2017. So I think we got to be at a couple of years now.
And how many podcasts have you done?
I think we're at like 160 taped.
Yeah, you're doing great. Wow.
It's fun. I mean, these relationships, I can't tell you how valuable they've been just through the networking, like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So, and for anybody listening, both Jack and I were on Chris's show. So this is bringing the cycle all the way around. So we are happy to have you. Any parting words, Chris, for our listeners, best advice, things that you see happening in the market, where do you see things going? What should people be looking out for?
I wish I could give that latter piece of advice, because we'd be in Cayman Islands somewhere, never working again if we knew that answer. But I do have a thought. We talked about shiny objects. We talked about expectations and all that. Here's a thought. I'm not so naive to think our niche is the best. You guys probably feel the same way. There's a lot of niches that are really cool in real estate. But regardless of what you pick a niche that you like. Pick then in the niche someone doing it like you guys that are in the trenches doing it and still doing it, not old, past. And then follow that person for 3 years. Back to the expectation thing. I hate, people think 6 months. No. Follow someone or something for 3 years without getting diverted for any other shiny objects, and you're guaranteed a great experience if you can do that. It's easier said than done. Put the blinders on and do that. That's my only thought. And that's if you were going to start a restaurant, open a hot dog stand, do reels, anything.
Yeah.
Stay focused.
Yeah, that's great advice.
That you committed to doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, as entrepreneurs, that's not the easiest thing, right? Because
no, I know, definitely not.
We love to start things, and so we start something up, and then we can get bored, and we don't actually kind of follow through and see it all the way through to its logical conclusion. So
sounds somewhat familiar.
Just a little bit. So, Chris, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. How can the listeners find you and your training and the stuff that you're doing?
They can just, we have a lot of free stuff. I'm big on that because I want you to do your due diligence first. They can just go to smartrealestatecoach.com. You guys can put some other links in your show notes from our team. That's good. And the book you held up, I'm happy to, it's a hard copy book. Clearly you have it in front of you. I can give a link and they can get that for free. And I mean shipping too, guys. I can't stand when they say free and then you got to put your credit card in. I'm saying we'll pay for shipping. No credit card will be entered. If you want me to give that link, I'm happy to.
Yeah. Send it to us and we'll, or is it easy to remember? Is it one that you can go ahead?
Yeah, because the book's called New Rules of Real Estate. So it's New Rules for Free, FOR, not the number 4. newrulesforfree.com.
New rules.
All they got to do is say they heard it on your show. That's all, you guys.
Okay, New Rules for Free. We'll put both those links into the show notes and make sure people get this. I would give this an endorsement, but I just got it yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to read it.
Well, by the time it airs, you can comment.
I'm feeling a little salty because I don't have one, so I'm going to have to go to your link.
No, you're getting one, Jack. His team followed up with me.
Okay.
And I said, boy, Jack's going to be feeling really bad if he doesn't get one of these.
I will be feeling
I sent him your home address.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, Chris, thank you so much. Jack, thank you as always for helping uncover all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's been a great talk, and we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
Chris,
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate your wisdom. Thanks so much.
Thank you.